Hi, my name is Sean Jones, and I am in charge of the Dark and Stormy Archives project. Today I'm going to be talking about automatically visualizing a full story with Raintale. And see, the Dark and Stormy Archives project is about storytelling with web archives. And so Raintale's question is, what story will you tell with web archives? We're looking to combine social media storytelling with some mementos that are found in web archives. And the DSA toolkit provides a solution for each stage of the storytelling lifecycle. In a previous video, I went over what you could do with memento embed and the different types of surrogates that you can produce. In this video, we're going to summarize all mementos together and publish the story. Essentially, we're going to do step 3. However, in a follow-up video, we'll go over Hypercane, where you can select the pages for your story. But today, we're just going to be operating on a preset group of mementos, just a list that I've already constructed. Now, memento embed just produces information for individual pages, so we created Raintale to tell stories. Raintale generates social media stories for mementos. It publishes to file formats like HTML or Markdown, or it can publish to social media services like Twitter. Raintale also supports templates for custom output. And we can publish many mementos with Raintale in a variety of formats, like I said, with Twitter threads or GitHub pages. And we're not going to do this today, but we're experimenting also with videos, a way to experience the content of a web archive collection through images and top sentences and other things. But this is still being worked on. And Raintale uses templates to let you customize the look and destination media of your story. And we're going to make a future video discussing templates, but today I'll introduce you to the documentation so you have some idea of how to make your own and where to go for more information. And so let's get started with Raintale. Now, everything that's in this particular tutorial is also available in text form on GitHub. So we can go ahead and put the URL for that in the video. I'm going to edit the video and add that URL at this point so you can see it. Okay, now we're going to move on. So what I've done is I've already downloaded a set of mementos that are available here also, and I will be putting that URL up. And I've put these memento URLs, these URI-Ms, into a text file here so that we can use it for our story. In another previous video, we also covered how to install Raintale, and we're not going to be doing that. We're not going to install it today, so you need to go watch the other video to figure out how to install it with Docker. However, if you execute some of the commands that we execute, it should download and install on its own. But the important thing is that you get the appropriate Docker Compose file, which you can acquire from the Raintale website up here. You put that in a directory, and then you can create your own stories with Raintale. So to create a story, a very, very simple story, we go into the directory where we downloaded the Docker Compose file. We type Docker Compose, run Raintale tell story, and then start supplying arguments. Now, to go over this, Docker Compose is the command that executes Docker Compose. And then Docker Compose needs to know what to do. So you're telling it to run a particular container. In this case, the container is Raintale, and we want to run the tell story command in that container. We want to submit -I input of a file that I created already. You can see it here. It's called story mementos. That is this particular file containing these URI-Ms, these memento URLs. So we supply the input of story mementos. And now we have to tell it what to do with it. And so I'm going to tell it to use a storyteller of HTML. And what this will do is this will generate a default story with cards. In a future video, we may go over how to create more complex stories, but for right now, this is what we're going to cover. We have to give our story a title. In this case, these particular mementos are about the earthquake in Haiti. And these particular mementos come from a collection, so we can link back to the collection by supplying the collection URL argument. And I have that URL right over here. I will paste it into the terminal. And we also want to give credit to someone. I am the one who's generating this, so it's generated by Sean M. Jones. And then the final argument we have here is -o. This is our output file. And our output file in this case will be mystory.html. So I hit enter, and Raintale is off and running. And it is going ahead and trying to contact, or succeeding in contacting, Memento Embed and downloading the appropriate information in order to tell your story. In more detail, this particular visualization gives you some idea of what's going on. We see that in step 1, the user specifies which URIs to use and how the story should be told. I've done that here with this particular list of mementos. It's just in the text file. It's just a list of URLs. And then Raintale, step number 2, asks Memento Embed for information about each memento. Memento Embed then provides Raintale with the requested information about each memento, and Raintale takes all of that information and formats the story based off of the user specification. Now it accepts as input a file containing a list of memento URIs, which are what I created here, a template or preset. In our case, the template or the preset is HTML. That is our default. You can also supply other options, such as template, if you want to supply your own template file. You can also do a variety of other things, like tell stories on Twitter, which we may cover in a future video. We see a lot of output from Raintale, which is largely to help us understand what's going on. In this particular case, we have only 9 mementos we're trying to tell a story for. And it's taking a while getting information from Archive-It in order to understand what these mementos contain. But as you can see, we have a variety of sources from Washington Post to New York Times and others. And at the end, it says, done telling your story with the HTML storyteller. Output is available at mystory.html. So we go back to our Finder window. We see that there's a new file there called mystory.html. We go ahead and open it in Firefox. And we see these are our mementos. These are our cards which contain titles and text, images, and we have some idea of what's going on in Haiti during this earthquake. Now, of course, this is not the limit of what you can do with Raintale. There are other interesting, fascinating stories you can tell. And you can also use the templates in order to create more interesting and richer stories with a variety of content. So what we see here is a more complex set of cards with background images and other links to frequent entities and other things. And so Raintale provides this capability, but you have to be able to leverage it appropriately. And so it comes down to the templating. Raintale has linked off of its main page some documentation. You can go through the documentation and it tells you the different types of stories that you can create. It tells you how to run Raintale with Docker Compose. It instructs you on how to build your story. We, in this particular video, used this simple text file containing a list of URI-Ms, memento URLs that were just easily copied and pasted. But you can make a more complex story with JSON, if you so choose. And then once you've done that, you have a variety of options. And there are a number of available storytellers. We chose HTML. There's also Markdown. You can output to Jekyll, MediaWiki. You can supply your own template. And of course, we are experimenting with video. For social media, we can output to Twitter and Facebook. However, if you supply template and you configure your own stories, you can make richer stories like this. And we have an entire section on how one can create their own templates. From simple templates to more complex ones that support all variety of interesting outputs. The key to the templates is that you understand the templating library or the templating software Jinja 2 and our own extensions, which you can discover and learn by reading the documentation. Also of interest, let's see if I can find here it is. We have this particular story here, which I'm going to place on the right. And we can look at the documentation on the left. We see that each story or each memento is represented by a card. And each card is just a set of HTML. And the template for this particular story, because it's built in, is found in our template gallery. I will supply a URL for this. And our template gallery gives you access to the template code that you can use and extend for your own purposes. And so what we see here is the template code used to generate the story on the right. It's a bunch of HTML, but there are a variety of if statements and other things that are helpful in instructing Raintale in what to do. So we have the title placed here. We have the story by here. And you see that inside these double braces are variables. And this is what helps generate the story and the content. Here we have the beginning of the loop, looping through all the elements of the story. And inside the HTML, we have a variety of variables like URI-M, original URI, and so on. And inside this HTML are all the instructions necessary to produce the image. So if we find element.surrogate.image, striking image, no, image. Best image. Sorry, element.surrogate.bestImage. It's there, it's also here. So this HTML corresponds to this particular image as you see on the right. This image of these computers here. The title corresponds to element.surrogate.title. The snippet, the text snippet here, corresponds to element.surrogate.snippet, and so on. And so you can format a particular story the way that you want. And because this is in a loop, it is repeating for each memento it encounters. So you can take something as non-remarkable as this and produce something more compelling like this. Raintale has a lot of documentation, a lot of information on its website. We invite you to come and join us there and try to create stories from mementos and let us know how it turns out. We're really excited to see how this turns out for you. Thank you.